Hello, my name is Heather, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit today about SB 637. So we're going to start and talk about just basically some of the things that are involved with the SB 637 bill. What this is all referring to is mercury. Mercury that's found in our current lakes, rivers, streams, creeks, all the places that we actually currently get our water from. Then also the things that will affect, like the wildlife, okay? Namely the fish that are currently in the waterways themselves. Currently, right now, we're well aware of the situation that there are large deposits of mercury through all of these waterways. Now, mercury, we've all heard about, it's a pretty dangerous chemical. We all kind of wonder how it ends up in our riverways and the rest of our waterways. So I'm going to go ahead and step back and do a little bit of the history. The history of it was basically that gold rush miners back in the 1800s started using mercury to help capture gold in their sluice boxes. A very dangerous practice that was stopped in the 1800s and hasn't been done for a really, really long time. Other ways that we ended up with mercury in the water table are going to be common things that were manufactured throughout history all the way up until current day. Things like fluorescent light bulbs, calculators, gauges, thermostats, thermometers. One of my personal favorites, barometers. A barometer currently has about 50 grams of mercury to up to several pounds of mercury in each one of these. And in case you're wondering what 50 grams of mercury would look like, it would look like this, okay? And so what happens is all of those things ended up in our landfills, and basically as they've gotten broken, they've gotten down into the soil, and through the rains and storms have slowly traveled down and ended up into our water streams, okay? So another reason why there's mercury is cinnabar. It's a natural ore, and basically it is where mercury comes from. So we're never going to be able to truly get rid of the whole mercury problem. So now what we have to do is try and figure out how to reduce that. Okay? And so what I'm going to do is a little experiment today, and it's going to kind of help make it easier for you guys to understand the problem that we're dealing with. And since I can't use mercury, since it's way too dangerous, I'm going to go ahead and use honey to kind of give you an idea of what we're talking about. The problem we have is that this mercury has basically ended up in these streams, like I said, and rivers and lakes, okay, and creeks. And what it does, I don't know if you guys can see this, it sits down at the bottom like this, okay? And it has a hard crust on the outside of it that kind of keeps it in this form, because it's really thick. Now what happens is mercury, as it sits down like this, is not very dangerous. But what happens is that when you have any kind of turbidity introduced into the water system, okay, the mercury then gets broken up. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate that turbidity. On a jar I've got marked Mother Nature. And what happens is that water gets turning and twisting and moving all that dirt, and it happens every single day. The drawback is it helps break up the mercury into smaller particles. Once that mercury is broken up into all those small particles, now the water, it cannot be pulled back out of it. So the water now becomes hazardous, okay? So if we leave this down there, that mercury, we're going to have a serious problem. So what the government and special interest groups like the Sierra Fund are working hard at doing for you today is actually coming along, and they're using a method called a cutter dredge, okay? And what a cutter dredge does is it goes down with a claw and it breaks up the loose material at the bottom of these areas. And then what it does is it sucks it up through a tube like this, and then it goes ahead and it moves it across the riffle system, okay? Very similar to this one here. Okay, but on a much, much larger scale. So we're going to go ahead and go step by step through that. So first of all, you have your little action where they break it up, okay, to even get it up to the surface. Then it goes across the riffle, and they're able to pull out 92% of what they've already shooken up. And then they put that into a closed seclusion box, okay, to capture all the water. And then what happens is from there it goes into another container. And so that water is mixed around at a high turbidity right there, moving back and forth. And so what happens is it takes that remaining mercury and it turns around and it breaks it down into small particles. And once again, that water is now toxic, just like what's been moved by Mother Nature. And therein lies the issue. Because what's now happening is they are turning around and through SB 637 trying to say that a regular suction dredge is having the same effects that Mother Nature is doing naturally, and with their low efficiency, successful cutter dredge, as they call it, effect. Now the reality is a standard dredge that a gold miner uses basically gets sucked up straight through the tube without breaking up the ground surface area, without breaking that mercury into smaller particles, goes across a small riffle system, which is about 6 to 8 riffles, depending on the type of dredge, like these same ones the cutter dredge is using. But then what happens is it gets deposited outside the box. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go sucked up. We're going to go ahead and we're going to roll this, okay? And so that shows the rolling motion as it went across the top of the riffles. So now what happens is at the very end of this, now the water comes out the back of the box. Okay? A standard dredge will capture 98% of the mercury, okay? And so what happens is that 98% of that is sitting out to the side and no longer a danger. They are trying to put a permitting program on us, acting as if we're doing the same things as you see here. But the truth is you can definitely see the difference between what is happening naturally with their $7 million Lake Combie style dredge that they're doing for environmental cleanup versus what a standard dredge will do to the environment. Now, the reality is there are a lot of special interest groups like the Sierra Fund that are getting a lot of funding, not just for this project, but future projects. And the whole reason for that is because, yes, indeed, Mother Nature is creating a problem, and this mercury does need to be addressed. But the reality is that current modern day miners actually using a dredge system actually pull out 98% of that mercury, okay? The problem we run into now is the state has failed to make a program in order for us to safely dispose of this. So because the state is unwilling to turn around and safely make a program which has been proven very successful in the past, to turn around and give us a place to turn this off to for free, they would prefer to in turn stick with their method and use taxpayer money, okay, for funding and do it their way. The problem is you've got streams, creeks, lakes, and rivers everywhere. Honestly, we cannot afford to do it the way the state would prefer to have us do it. In all actuality, it makes a heck of a lot more sense to let the miners do what the miners are doing naturally, which is go and recover the gold that we're going to need for all types of devices, like your computers, your cell phones. It's an ore. We have to have it. It's something that's in everything you're using every single day. But the reality is we're not allowed to not only get those minerals, but we're also not allowed to help pull this mercury out of the waterway. All based on this fear right here of this 2%. So I'm basically asking you very kindly right now to think about it. Don't fall into the political games that they play. Don't believe the faulty science they have. Please understand that we do have a problem. Both of the government and we all agree that we have a problem with mercury. Give us a solution. Let us get back in the water with our dredging as we were. Let us be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. Okay? So please vote no on SB 637. The proof can't be any clearer on what's really safe for the environment and good for miners as well. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.